In 1976, former big league player Minnie Miñoso had a highly publicized and famous moment. He came out of retirement to make 3 appearances as a designated hitter for the Chicago White Sox at age 52, 12 years after his last big league game. 4 years later, Miñoso did it again, making 2 pinch-hitting appearances in 1980. Miñoso played in the big leagues from 1949 to 1964, and following that, he played in the minors and foreign leagues throughout the 1960s and early 70s. He was a few years removed from playing professionally by 1976, and by that point was a coach for the White Sox, so this whole thing was more or less a publicity stunt. I bring this up because Miñoso became the first and just one of 2 players ever to make an MLB appearance after appearing on the Hall of Fame ballot. According to Hall of Fame rules, one must have been retired for 5 years to be eligible for the Hall of Fame and must have played in at least 10 seasons. Given that, in order for someone to play in the big leagues after appearing on the ballot, a minimum 15 years would have to pass after his major league debut for this to occur. Seems virtually unlikely to see something like this happen, aside from that one mentioned some 50 years ago. Well, I did say Miñoso was one of 2 players who achieved that distinction, as there was one other instance where this happened. This player received a Hall of Fame vote only to make it back to the big leagues, and it happened more recently than you'd think. The player I'm referring to is former pitcher Jose Rijo. Jose Rijo was a starting pitcher who played in Major League Baseball for 14 seasons from 1984 to 2002. He played for 3 teams, but spent the most time with the Cincinnati Reds. In his career, Rijo appeared in nearly 400 games, started over 250, and threw nearly 1,900 innings. He holds a lifetime record of 116-91 while recording an ERA of 3.24, adjusted ERA of 121, a whip of 1.262, struck out 7.7 batters per 9 innings, and earned 36.5 WAR. He's a one-time All-Star, received Cy Young votes twice, and won the 1990 World Series MVP. It sounds as if Rijo had a decorated career, but to say he was only one of the best pitchers in baseball for a period of time would be an understatement. There was a 7-year stretch where one could argue Rijo was the best out there. From 1988 to 1994, Rijo appeared in over 220 games, made nearly 200 starts, and threw over 1,300 innings. He went 87-53 while recording an ERA of 2.63, adjusted ERA of 147, a whip of 1.155, struck out 7.8 batters per 9 innings, and earned an incredible 35.6 WAR. There were 62 pitchers in Major League Baseball with at least 1,000 innings pitched during this 7-year span. Among those pitchers, Rijo ranks inside the top 2 in ERA and adjusted ERA, while ranking inside the top 8 in strikeouts per 9 innings and whip. That's right, he had the lowest ERA period, and only Roger Clemens beat him in adjusted ERA. Excluding Roger Clemens, there was simply nobody out there that was as good as Jose Rijo was for a period of time in the late 80s and early 90s. I could go on about Rijo's incredible run, but there's a reason why I only looked up until 1994. After a rough start to the 1995 season, Rijo was placed on the disabled list with elbow tendonitis. He came back to pitch for another month, but was placed on the disabled list again in late July with elbow issues, where he would eventually get surgery on said elbow. I know what you're thinking, and yes, it was Tommy John surgery. Initially, the Reds hoped Rijo would only miss a year, and for a little while, it looked like he would be back sooner than later. Rijo made appearances in spring training 1996, and by all accounts, looked good in those rehab starts. Reds manager Ray Knight even commented on Rijo by saying he didn't look hurt, but instead looked good. "If I didn't know anything coming into camp, I wouldn't know anything is wrong," said Knight. However, that would be the most optimistic anyone would be about Jose Rijo for a long time. He suffered setbacks throughout the year, eventually getting shut down in August. In October 1996, Cincinnati general manager Jim Bowden stated, "We don't expect Jose Rijo to pitch again. It would be a miracle if he pitches again." 1 month later, Rijo got another elbow surgery, his third in the past 15 months. After his surgery, did Rijo say he would retire if he couldn't come back, specifically stating, "If I'm not able to return in 1997, then I'll retire from baseball." I'm not sure whether he meant rehab starts or an actual big league appearance, as in August of that year, Rijo went on the record saying he was working his way back, hoping to play again in 1998. He underwent an additional 2 surgeries on his elbow by the time spring training of 1998 rolled around, where he continued his unlikely comeback. Only 32 years old in spring of 98, he remained optimistic about his return to the big leagues, but any optimism he had would be squashed shortly after. Prior to opening day 1998, Rijo hit another setback and contemplated retirement. He said, "I'm going to take another 2 months without throwing, let it heal, and try to get better. If it doesn't get better, I'm going to just hang it up." While Rijo never officially announced his retirement, he took time away from the Reds to attend to his baseball academy in the Dominican Republic. 1 year later, in March 1999, he stated he wanted to make another comeback later that year once construction of his academy was finished. In September, Rijo announced a final comeback to Major League Baseball more than 4 years after his last appearance. I couldn't find much information about Rijo following that statement, but I did find that several writers claimed in 1999 and 2000 he was one of the few pitchers that had to retire from baseball due to complications from Tommy John surgery. While I can't say for sure, it appears to me as if he quietly retired without making anything official. However, despite everything going against him, he never gave up. In April 2001, he publicly stated he still wanted to come back. Over the next couple months, Rijo had tryouts with Cincinnati to prove he could still pitch at the big league level. One writer dubbed his comeback as a hoax, but little did he know what was about to happen. On June 29, 2001, after throwing another tryout at the Reds' home stadium, Synergy Field, Cincinnati signed him to a minor league contract. On the deal, Rijo said, "I want to be able to someday stand on the field and say goodbye to the people the way I should. In 1 month, if it doesn't go well, I guess I'll have to leave the field without saying goodbye." Rijo was assigned to the Reds Single-A team, then he made it to Double-A, then eventually Triple-A. He was decent in the minor leagues, having an ERA around 4. Normally, a team in contention would likely not promote someone like Rijo, but the Reds were at the bottom of the standings, fighting just to avoid 100 losses. They were nearly 20 games under 500 when Rijo signed with the club, and they would finish the year with a 66-96 record. In the middle of that horrendous season, did Jose Rijo defy all odds to return to Major League Baseball? He was called up from the minors 23 years minus 1 day ago on August 17, 2001. It was exactly 2,222 days, or more than 6 years after his last appearance on July 18, 1995. Jim Bowden said it was nothing short of a miracle, and he was spot on, because think about the process Rijo took to make it back. He had 5 surgeries on his elbow, suffered a plethora of setbacks, and had to climb an enormous uphill battle just to make it back to the mound. When the Cincinnati Reds hosted the Milwaukee Brewers on Friday, August 17th, the game was typical for the most part. Milwaukee's Jeremy Burnitz homered in the 5th for a 3-0 Brewers lead, and they led 5-1 heading into the bottom of the 7th. In that inning, when Ken Griffey Jr. was at bat, he had to call time as the Cincinnati crowd erupted because Jose Rijo started warming up in the bullpen. He took the mound in the 8th inning to a large standing ovation with a reported 29,214 fans in attendance to witness the historic comeback. In his first game back, Rijo threw a scoreless 8th, thanks in part to 2 terrific outfield catches, one by Adam Dunn, don't hear that too often, and one by Brady Clark. In the 9th, Rijo stayed in the game, where he loaded the bases with 1 out. He got slugger Richie Sexson swinging for the 2nd out, as did the next batter Jose Hernandez to escape the jam. After the 3rd out, the crowd gave him a standing ovation, where he tipped his cap as he returned to the dugout. On his return, Rijo said, "I cannot describe with words how I feel right now. It's beyond anything in my life that I ever accomplished. Best day of my life, better than winning the World Series. I did something that was impossible. I didn't believe I could do it myself." Given the circumstances, there are very few instances of an athlete, let alone baseball player, coming back to the sport they played after injuries derailed them at that high of an impact. Yes, countless times have we seen athletes recover from lengthy injuries such as Tommy John surgery or ACL tears, and multiple times have players recovered from life-threatening illnesses as well. Just last year did Liam Hendricks recover from blood cancer to return to the big leagues, as did first baseman Andres Galarraga a quarter century ago. Those examples are monumental, but there's something unique to Rijo's case since he was away from the game for that long. Miñoso might have been away for twice as long, but it wasn't due to injury. Has there ever been an athlete who went 6 years between appearances at their sport solely due to injuries and setbacks? Anyway, Rijo stayed in the major leagues for the rest of the 2001 season as a reliever, where he had a fantastic 2.12 ERA in 17 innings. The Reds re-signed him for 2002, and he made the opening day roster as a relief pitcher. After 4 appearances out of the bullpen, Rijo made his first start of the year on April 21st. In nearly 7 years since his last start, he pitched 5 innings of 1-run ball, picking up the victory, his first since July 13th, 1995. Overall in 2002, he threw 77 innings in 31 games, starring 9 of them, and achieved an ERA of 5.14. The second to last game in his career was not only the final start in his career, it was the final game in the history of Synergy Field, the Cincinnati Reds home from 1970 to 2002. The club did sign him to a minor league deal for 2003, but for the 6th time in 7 years, Rijo had yet another surgery on his elbow. Following a throwing session in June, his elbow wasn't improving, and he would officially retire the following year, putting an end to his incredible career. Perseverance would be the perfect word to describe Jose Rijo's unimaginable comeback. At one point was he one of the best pitchers out there, then succumbed to a series of injuries and setbacks, but never gave up and prevailed time and time again, despite all the odds against him. It will forever be the most incredible comeback in baseball history.